According to Wikipedia, extraordinary rendition is a euphemism for state sponsored kidnapping in another jurisdiction and transfer to a third state. The phrase usually refers to the United States led program used during the War on Terror, which had the purpose of circumventing the source country's laws on interrogation, detention, extradition, and/or torture. Extraordinary rendition is a type of extraterritorial abduction, but not all extraterritorial abductions include transfer to a third state. Extraordinary rendition began under the administration of President Bill Clinton. The Bush administration freely admitted to this practice, stating, among other provisions, that they have specifically asked that torture not be used. However, torture can still occur despite these provisions, and much documentation exists alleging that it has happened in many cases. In these instances, the initial captor allows the possibility of torture by releasing the prisoner into the custody of nations that practice torture. Post 9/11, the Bush administration began allowing the torture of our own prisoners, a direct violation of the Geneva Convention. And on August 5th, 2007, President Bush signed the Protect America Act into law. It was written to take effect retroactively to overwrite the administration's previous war crimes. And now Bush and Clinton are standing by, holding Marco Rubio's beer. It's Nazi o'clock. Time to woke up.
The following moments may contain explicit language. Viewer discretion is advised.
According to Secretary of State Marco Rubio via The Hill, El Salvador has offered to house criminals who are American citizens and deportees of other nationalities. Rubio traveled to El Salvador, part of his tour through Central America and the Caribbean, to drum up support for President Trump's immigration agenda, which the cabal said would include mass deportations. Quote, he has offered to house in his jails dangerous American criminals in custody in our country, including those of U.S. citizenship and legal residence, Rubio said, after he had just met with President Nayib Bukele at his lakeside country house outside San Salvador for several hours. According to NPR, after Rubio spoke, a U.S. official said the Trump cabal had no current plans to try to deport American citizens, but also said Bukele's offer was significant. The agreement Rubio described for El Salvador to accept foreign nationals arrested in the United States for violating U.S. immigration laws is known as the Safe Third Country Agreement. That would mean that the U.S. could deport non-Salvadorians to El Salvador. Rubio said Bukele then went further and said his country was willing to accept and jail U.S. citizens or legal residents convicted of and imprisoned for violent crimes. El Salvador will keep accepting Salvadorians who are living in the U.S. illegally, along with international criminal gangs MS-13 or Tren de Aragua, both of which have been designated as foreign terrorist organizations by Trump. I'm old enough to remember how Trump wanted to label Antifa as a terrorist organization in his first term, back when he was calling Nazis very fine people, before the Boogaloo Boys burned down Minneapolis and tried to frame us for it. It's actually in the land of delusion. They still push that lie like it's common knowledge. Of course, this all comes immediately after the cabal announced that Guantanamo Bay would become Auschwitz 2.0. It's already up and running, receiving their first shipments of inmates yesterday. The Holocaust started as a mass deportation. And when Hitler took power in 1933, the first thing he did was pardon the insurrectionists that helped during his failed attempted coup 10 years earlier. It took him 2 months to dismantle Germany's democracy. Does any of this sound familiar? Because we are living out a sequel in a tired old horror movie. Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. The only thing the rest of us can do is stock up on lube because we saw this fucking coming. According to CBS News, the ownership of the Proud Boys trademark is now in the hands of a black church that the white supremacist group vandalized in 2020. The Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church in Washington, D.C. was granted ownership of the group's trademark in a February 3rd ruling from Judge Tanya M. Jones-Bozier of the Superior Court of the District of Columbia. The decision also gives Metropolitan AME Church a lien on the trademark and the power to block the Proud Boys from using the trademark or selling licensed goods like t-shirts or hats without the church's approval. The ruling on the Proud Boys copyright stems from an incident on December 12, 2020, when members of the all-male right-wing group attended a Stop the Steal event in Washington, D.C., and also attacked the Metropolitan AME Church by climbing over a fence to get onto the church property where they destroyed a Black Lives Matter sign. According to court documents, the court ordered the Proud Boys to pay the church $2.8 million, money that the group has failed to pay. According to The Guardian, the mob included Enrique Tarrio, a planner of the January 6th attack, who was subsequently sentenced to 22 years in prison for seditious conspiracy. But he was among the 1,500 traitriots pardoned and freed when Trump returned to office January 20th. In a June 2023 ruling, D.C. Superior Court Judge Neil Kravitz said Tarrio and fellow Proud Boys members Joseph Biggs, Ethan Nordine, John Turano, and Jeremy Bertino had, quote, acted with an evil discriminatory motive based on race and that their conduct was reprehensible to an extreme degree when they attacked the church. It was one of a number of violent attacks that took place in the Washington, D.C. area between Trump's defeat to Joe Biden in the 2020 presidential election and the deadly January 6th attack by his supporters trying to keep him in office. Tarrio did not take part in the Capitol insurrection because he'd been arrested for stealing a Black Lives Matter flag in a separate assault on the Asbury United Methodist Church, one of 4 churches attacked by the Proud Boys on the same night. So apparently these traitor motherfuckers need a new name. And may I suggest traitor motherfuckers? Or possibly maybe Nazi sacks of shit. Leave me a comment if you think of something good. After shutting down all foreign aid, the president announced in a joint press conference with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that we own Gaza now, and that the 2 million people currently living there should just go live in Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, Afghanistan, pretty much any place except Gaza or Israel. They're not welcome in Israel. Fortunately, inciting 2 billion Muslims won't be an issue because the Nazi propaganda channels have already programmed us to blame any terrorist attacks on Biden's open borders. So if you haven't noticed, we're the bad guys now. Just evil, greedy, selfish bullies. No morals, ethics, boundaries, or shame. Every day is a new low. I don't know how they're going to top ethnic cleansing, but I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. Thanks for watching. If you speak the truth, you're always right. Peace.